Barbara County Planning Commission hearing for March 8th, 2023. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Mr. Villalobos, will you please give us our TV coverage announcement?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to the commission.
Thank you.
Planning Commission hearings are televised live on County of Santa Barbara Television, CSB TV, Channel 20 at 9 a.m. The South Coast, Lompoc, San Ynez Valley, Santa Maria, and Orca areas. Rebroadcast of Planning Commission hearings are on Fridays after 5 p.m. on CSB TV Channel 20. Today's hearing will also be streamed live on the county's website and will be available for download in a day or two. Moving on to the roll call. Commissioner Cooney.
Here in Santa
Thank
Barbara.
you. Commissioner Bradley. Here. Commissioner Farini.
Here.
Commissioner Martinez. Here. And Chair Park.
I'm here.
Thank you.
All right.
We'll talk about it.
It's all right. We like having
I
you.
like being here. I like the
That's
drive.
fine.
Too. Sorry.
And you don't have the same excuse that Commissioner Cooney has.
Okay.
You couldn't ever have that same excuse. Okay. Secretary Wilson, will you entertain us with our agenda report? It should be simple today, but do the best you can.
Chair and Commissioners, you stumped me with the entertainment part. I had a dramatic read prepared, but
Oh, I'm
I'm not
sorry.
quite ready to perform. In regards to the status of our agenda, we do have only one item, which is the Solomon Hills General Plan Amendment and Rezone Application review for initiation. That's the only item on the agenda, and staff and the applicants are here and ready to present on that. Good. I can move to the projection report, Mr. Chair.
Please do.
The next item, looking at the projection report, our next hearing is going to be on March 29th. And that will also be here in the Santa Maria hearing room. There are two items projected on that, which is the North Fork Ranch Frost Ponds project. And then we have the appeal of Terra Firma Cannabis Cultivation Project. Again, that's here in Santa Maria hearing room. As of right now, we don't have anything projected for April 5th. And then on April 12th, we do have one item projected, which is another general plan amendment and rezone application initiation. And this project is located actually on the east side of 101 by the proximity to the Elks Rodeo in that area over there. And then that will be here in Santa Maria. And then our next hearing will be on April 26th. And that will be, we'll be back in Santa Barbara for that one. There are currently 4 items projected on that one. We have the appeal of we continued that item, which was the appeal of the Plains Pipeline to April 26th. And we have a lot line adjustment. Isla Vista Rec and Parks Department has a project, and then we have a safety element update on April 26th. And then on May 3rd, we are again in Santa Barbara with one item, which is a cannabis nursery project in, I think that's in the Goleta area. It is, it says Goleta. And then moving down the projection report, we don't have anything else projected until June 14th, which is in Santa Maria, which is the Havens Cannabis Storefront, which is in Los Alamos. One other item that isn't on the projection report, which I'm working on scheduling, and I'm tentatively looking at April 12th, is to bring an ordinance amendment for the COVID hardship determination, which is to extend the time. It is supposed to expire on October 23rd, or not, I'm sorry, October 2023. And we're thinking of extending that for another year. And we're focusing on the inland area, which is land use development code. So I'm looking tentatively at April 12th as the potential hearing date for that. But we'll get back to the commission on that. I'm sorry.
What was that one again for? I'm going to do on April 12th,
Yeah,
the ordinance amendment.
Yeah, Commissioner Freeney through the chair. And we're talking about a couple years ago, a year ago, we did an ordinance amendment again in regards to the COVID hardship determination, which we actually amended it to allow for economic hardships due to COVID. And so because of ongoing potential economic hardships related to the economy recovering from COVID, we want to extend that time period.
Very good. And that relates in ways that you don't know about to the Ag Enterprise Ordinance and the Rec Master Plan and so forth, but all shall be revealed at the right time. And speaking of that, I understand that the proponents of the master plan would like some hearing time for workshops in the spring. And there are some shorter workshop items that are somewhat different that I wanted to schedule. So I'm telling you that now in this public hearing so that you will remind me later that you and I should discuss this, Secretary Wilson, how to manage to fit these things in. Okay. Any questions about the projection report? Then let's move on to public comment. This is not public comment on the project before us today. This is public comment on anything that's not on the agenda today. And public's entitled to comment up to 15 minutes total of all public comment. I would ask anybody who is making public comment to stick to the 3 minutes that we traditionally have for public comment speakers. Do we have any public comment either in the room or via Zoom, Mr. Villalobos? I don't see any speaker slips.
I have not received any speaker slips, but I do see that we do have one hand raised on Zoom. That's Dylan Osliger.
Apologies, that was an accidental hand up.
Okay, great, thank you. With that, I believe that means that we don't have any hands up for this general public comment.
Okay. How about planning commissioners' informational reports? Do we have any? I guess not. And now let's consider our minutes. Who has reviewed the minutes and would like to make any comments on them?
So let me start.
Okay, you start.
So I did mention this in the email I sent out yesterday afternoon. So we're still working on these conceptual review item that was on that set of minutes. So I did not distribute the draft. So I would just ask that the commission continue review of those into your next meeting on the 29th.
Oh, good. We won't have to take all morning reviewing the minutes then. Let's move on to the director's report, which will be presented to us remotely by Director Plowman.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. I have a very brief report this morning. Not a whole lot has happened since we last met. The board only had a closed session item this week. So all I really have is just to let you know that the comment period closed on the housing element on March 1st. The team is busily working on reviewing comments and making revisions to the update, which will then be submitted to the state in this month. And then just future board items. We're going to be at the board with the work program on the 21st of March. The Highway 101 appeal is on April 4th. Our budget workshops are April 17th, starting that week. And then again, the safety element, which is going to come to you first, is going to go on the 16th of May. And that's tied to wildfire issues. And that's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have questions of Director Plowman? Looks like the answer is no. And let's hop on the train to get to our standard agenda. We read it into the record.
Yeah, this one's a long
one and only item.
This one's a long one, so
All right.
bear with me. This is a request of Solstice Communities CA applicant to initiate a general plan amendment and to rezone, change the land use designation of portions of APNs 10102, 0085, 086 and 087 from commercial agricultural to a new mix of land use designations that would allow various residential, commercial, institutional, and open land uses, and change the zoning designations of portions of those same parcels from Ag 2 to a mix of zoning land use designations that will allow for future residential, commercial, institutional, and mixed-use development in different areas of the subject property. Create a new boundary around the proposed element. And the commission is not considering the GPA or rezone for approval. Rather, they are considering whether or not to accept these applications for processing. If accepted for processing, planning and development staff would proceed with review and analysis of the project applications.
Okay. Do we have any ex parte disclosures from the various commissioners? Where to start, right?
Yeah. Ready?
You want to start?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. On February 9th, I met with Brian Robinson, Pete Kaisecker, Jackson Washburn, and Jay Higgins. And we did a couple-hour site visit out at the site. Also have had numerous phone conversations with Jay Higgins.
Okay. Commissioner Martinez.
Yes, on February 27th, I had a site visit, presence of Jackson Washburn, Jay Higgins, and big thing. And then I had a subsequent short conversation with Mr. Higgins on the 61 feet.
Very good. And how about you, Commissioner Bradley?
Different. Well, similar to the other commissioners, I actually had a site visit, and you know what, I don't have the date, but it was about 2 months ago with Jackson Washburn, Jim, Jim with Terrain Consulting, and Jay Higgins at the site. And then I've had a couple of subsequent conversations with Mr. Youngson, Jim Youngson. So that's it.
Okay. And Commissioner Cooney, have you had any, do you have any ex parte disclosures to make about this project?
I do, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me? Okay.
We can. I can't see you yet, but it'll happen.
I'm not sure about the visual, but I did have two conferences by Zoom with attorney Beth Collins and Jay Higgins, the second of which was yesterday. It lasted about 15 minutes.
Okay, for me, I had a site visit a few months ago with Mr. Higgins and Mr. Robinson. And then I've had various phone conversations with Mr. Robinson. I met with Mr. Washburn, I think it was, and Mr. Robinson in Goleta a month or so ago. And then just 2 days ago, I met with applicants themselves who appeared in front of us today, and with Mr. Higgins and Mr. Robinson. And I've had a couple of phone conversations with Mr. Higgins. I think that's all. Although I think I mentioned I had some casual conversation about this with Ms. Collins at a cocktail party. Just leaving everything in there. Okay. I'm going to tell you all how the hearing will work today. We have Commissioner Cooney, who is in Santa Barbara. He has an engagement in the afternoon where it would make sense for him to leave no later than 12:30. And I think that we can have this project done by noon. And so that's going to be my aim. I do not intend to take a lunch break because I think we can get this done. If I'm wrong and it's 2:30 or 3 o'clock and everybody's looking starved and so forth, I might break so you can get a Cliff Bar or something. But that's my best guess that we'll get this done. For those of you who haven't been to these hearings or think that this is something so different, it's from our usual project that we won't have the usual hearing rules. No, we'll kind of conduct it like we normally do. We'll have a staff report from Ms. Reese, and that will take what it takes. After the staff report, Director Plowman will join us again and give us a summary of where things stand. So we'll make sure that that happens. Then we're going to have and then we'll have questions from the commissioners. Then we'll have a presentation by the applicants. They've told me they can do their initial presentation in 20 minutes or less. No one ever gets that right, so I've chided them about that and said I'll give them 25 minutes if they really need it, but you're going to try to get it done in 20. And they will reserve 10 minutes for any rebuttal that's necessary. After they present, we'll turn to public comment. We have a small pile of slips here, people here in the room. We'll have people on Zoom. Do we have any idea how many on Zoom so far, Mr. Villalobos?
Currently, we have 2.
2. And it's not too late to sign up for Zoom. There's a link on our website that shows you how to do it. And it's not too late to submit speaker slips if you want to comment. I've read all the letters that have been sent to us, even the ones that were addressed to to Chair Cooney, which was like all of them. But I read them anyway. Had to swallow my pride. And they're very good letters. They're well organized. They cover the content well. It's great to see so many organizations chime in and give their point of view. But because the letters are so good, I think we probably don't need as much oral comment. And what I'm going to suggest is that I will let people go first that are willing to limit their comment to a minute. So if you just want to say, you know, I love this project and please initiate, or I hate the project, or I hate you, or whatever you want to say. If you can say it quickly, you line up against the wall there. We're not going to shoot you. You're just lining up, and you'll go one after another for your 1 minute, and we'll do the same thing with Zoom. So that'll speed things along. But if you need more than a minute and have something to explain, then you can have your 3 minutes. I noticed when we did this the last time that the last 4 or 5 speakers reserved the time to go 3 minutes, and they were each done in 30 seconds apiece. So, you know, just think about what you need to say, and now you have time to plan for that. After public comment, we will give the applicants an opportunity to do their rebuttal based on what they've heard, and they may not need it, but they'll have that opportunity. Then we'll have input from staff on any further comments staff thinks need to be made, and any questions of staff from planning commissioners. Then I'll ask each planning commissioner to state their point of view and deliberations, and we'll proceed to some sort of conclusion of what we're asked to do today. So I hope that's all clear. All right. Ms. Reese, are you ready to go?
Yes, Chair Park, thank you. So I am here today to present the Solomon Hills GPA and rezone applications for acceptance. Wait till we get the slides on. Great. All right, sorry about that. So I'm first going to spend a moment going over what application acceptance is and why these applications are in front of the Planning Commission today. When we get an application in for a general plan amendment or rezone submitted in the inland area, the director reviews that application and determines whether or not to accept it for processing or to refer it to the Planning Commission. In the case of this project, the director referred the request to the PC because the project is precedent-setting in nature due to its size, scope, location, conversion of agriculturally zoned land, and expansion of urban development outside of the existing Orchid Community Plan urban rural boundary. The LUDC also requires that the director make a recommendation to the Planning Commission as to whether to accept the applications for processing, and for the reasons, there we go. For the reasons stated just now and also in this slide, the director recommends that the PC decline to accept the applications for processing so that they can be considered by the Board of Supervisors. I'm going to go over the subject property site. It's located south of Key Site 3 and county-owned open space. So I'm just going to indicate that with the pointer here. This is Key Site 3, and the county owns a parcel right along this property line. And the northern portion of the site here is within the Orchid Community Plan area. And the whole site is in the rural area. And this project site is surrounded by Ag 2 zoned parcels that support a mix of grazing, row crops, and oil and gas production. And the applicant is seeking a acceptance of applications for general plan amendment to create a new urban area immediately south of the Orchid Community Plan boundary that runs through the site here. And to change the land use designation from agricultural commercial to various residential, commercial, institutional, and open space land use designations. The applicant is also applying for accompanying rezones from Ag 2 100 to allow for a mix of future uses in different areas of the subject property. And they have provided a conceptual graphic that identified potential land use and zoning designations in a table that's attachment B to the memo. However, the location and boundaries of specific land use and zoning designations have not been depicted on any graphic provided to staff. So this graphic here broadly identifies polygons that could be developed residentially, which is in yellow. And then there's also an indication here that some of these blue areas could be mixed use residential or commercially. So that's pink and blue, light blue. And the project includes up to 4,000 units with a range of housing types. They list affordable, workforce, multifamily, single family, active adult, and executive. And the applicant anticipates providing affordable units as well as workforce units on site, but has not specified the number of such units at this time. The project also conceptually includes a village center of unspecified size with traditional retail uses for daily community needs and an estimated 500 to 600,000 square foot office campus intended to serve as a centralized location for company offices and workspace for residents who work remotely. For some historical background on the site, the subject property is presently zoned Ag 2 100 with a land use designation of agricultural commercial. It was under a Williamson Act contract for approximately 20 years, and that contract was terminated in 2009. And based on the information provided in recent project applications, staff believes there are still grazing leases on the property. The subject property is also partially located within an active oil field and has an extensive history of oil development and infrastructure on site. And as part of this project, the applicant proposes that all future oil and gas extraction activities occurring in the subsurface beneath the project area would be permanently abandoned. Remediation and abandonment efforts would require entitlements from P&D's Energy, Minerals, and Compliance Division, as well as coordination with departments and other agencies like EHS and CalGEM. And all proposed development will have to also comply with applicable county and state setback requirements from existing and abandoned wells. There's also been a past initiation effort that was inclusive of the subject property before you today, and that's discussed at length in the memo. That 2007 proposal consisted of a request to allow for up to 7,500 residential units and 2 million square feet of commercial development and offices on a 1,200 square foot developable area, or sorry, 12,000 acre, pardon me. The PC ultimately recommended 4-1 that the board not accept that GPA application, though the applicant withdrew it before it went to the board. And the project that's before the PC today is different from the prior proposal in a number of ways, including that the mineral and land rights are now under common ownership. The applicant now proposes abandonment of oil and gas infrastructure on site, and the development scope is reduced. I'm going to briefly go over the considerations that were raised in staff's memo over the next few slides. And the information is illustrative of the major issues to be considered by the commission and studied further if the applications are accepted, but it's not necessarily a comprehensive list because of course the project is in early stages of development and we only have limited information at this time. So the first of these considerations is that the project will have to address the creation of a new urban area in proximity to the existing OCP urban rural boundary line, and that's the brown dashed line here. And it's also adjacent to the edge of the Orchid Community Plan, which is that purple area there. And the applicant is not proposing currently to extend the existing OCP urban rural boundary line to encompass the proposed project. The applications that are before the commission are for a new separate urban area. The project will also need to address increased vehicle miles traveled and related impacts to air quality, greenhouse gases, and the jobs housing imbalance in the region. Based on initial review by staff and Public Works Transportation Division, the project is anticipated to result in a substantial increase in VMTs and related impacts due in part to that increase will have to be studied. If the project is accepted, the applicant should also demonstrate how the proposed commercial uses at the center of the community would be adequate to improve the imbalance. And the applicant has expressed an overall vision of a sustainable community. So a balance of adequate commercial development and employment opportunities is essential to achieving that vision and minimizing the environmental impacts. There are a number of site constraints on the property as well, such as mineral resource sites, steep slopes, some prime soils, mapped grazing lands, areas of high scenic value, significant habitat, and sensitive biological resources. The project would be required to address the conversion of agriculturally zoned land to residential and commercial zoning. And the on-site agricultural operations and capability would be studied as well as part of the project review process. The project would also be required to demonstrate that the environmental impacts are avoided or mitigated to the extent feasible, and that the project complies with applicable county policies. Significant environmental impacts are expected in a number of issue areas as well. So the project applications, should they be accepted, would have an environmental impact report prepared. So the applicants would also be required to provide information that all services would be adequately provided to serve the project. At this stage, the applicant is exploring multiple options for public and private services to serve the project. And there are, of course, governance and policy issues that would need to be addressed as a part of the service provision as well. And the project, unlike the proposal that was evaluated by the PC in 2007, conceptually includes a new fire station on site. The subject property is entirely within the high fire hazard severity zone, which is shown here, and it looks like yellow on the screen, it's orange. And it abuts parcels that are in the very high fire hazard severity zone. So should the applications be accepted, fire protection needs, particularly vegetation management and wildfire risk, would be evaluated. As mentioned previously, the applicant also proposes abandonment and closure of the existing oil and gas wells and infrastructure located within the proposed development area. And the process for abandonment and soil remediation, as well as a thorough analysis of the past cleanup activities for facilities that are already abandoned, and identification of any further cleanup operations would be studied if the project were accepted. As discussed earlier, setbacks may apply from both abandoned and active wells. The well sites are shown here in brown. Lastly, if the applications are accepted, in order to approve the proposed rezone and GPA, the future decision maker would have to find that the requests are in the interest of the general community welfare, consistent with good zoning and planning practice, and consistent with the comprehensive plan, the requirements for state planning or of state planning and zoning laws, and the LUDC. As for next steps, acceptance of the GPA and rezone applications don't commit the county to approve the project. Rather, application acceptance would allow the applicant to move forward with additional analysis, research, and accompanying applications and go through the normal review process. I have the recommendations here. I think Director Plowman has some comments on this slide.
Are you done?
I can go over the slide if needed. Basically, what I was going to say is that the director recommends that what we discussed at the beginning of the presentation, that the PC decline to accept and refer the application to the board with a recommendation. But alternatively, the commission can take the action to accept the applications for processing.
Good. I'd ask that we commissioners hold our questions that we'd otherwise have for Ms. Reese until we hear from Ms. Plowman first. So Ms. Plowman, are you ready to go?
I am. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So
Can we turn up the volume on that a little? No? I figured you would, but okay, thanks.
Is that better?
That is better.
Okay. So I felt that my recommendation definitely deserved a discussion and an explanation of what my thinking was and the basis for that recommendation. So Shannon laid out some of the main questions, but what I wanted to start with is that this recommendation is more or less about forwarding this concept to the board for them to get to weigh in on. Aside from the previous project that was considered on this site back in 2007, this is probably the largest project the county has seen, at least in my tenure. And while it's a very interesting concept, there are issues that I think merit the board's consideration before initiating it. And that really has to do with the scope of it, the conversion of agricultural land, the extension of an urban-rural boundary line, and the potential for controversy around it. It's not to say that I don't want the Planning Commission to have a robust discussion about your thoughts and what you would recommend to the board. I wholeheartedly encourage that. I think it's really important. That's your job as a commission, is to discuss these things thoroughly, consider them, and then share your thoughts with the Board of Supervisors. As Shannon indicated, Ms. Reese, there's an alternative, which is the PC could decide to initiate. And if that were to happen, the way the board would hear it is if your decision was appealed. So that really summarizes what my thinking is about it. I think there are a lot of questions about it, but I was not of the mind that I would recommend denial of it, as the staff previously did, but actually just forwarding it onto the board with your comments and thoughts about it. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a few questions on process, but I'd like to hold those until my fellow commissioners can ask their questions. Who has a question? Are the lights not working, or nobody has a question? Come on. Feels like second grade class. All right.
Mr. Chair, if you can't tell that my light is on down here, I'll just interrupt when I have a comment.
You feel free. Based on seniority.
I appreciate Director Plowman's comments, as I always do, her comments, but I think my question is, what's the right time for the board to get involved? And if we decline initiation and the applicant appeals, that's one way it gets to the board. However, I think there is no reason why the board can't take it up if it's of such concern that it should be presented to the applicants before they undertake all the expense and time necessary to to present their project to the public and the board. I'm just saying that I'm not aware that the board would be foreclosed from considering these issues on any agenda that the board has in the coming weeks, and they could take advantage of our comments in the meantime.
So, Mr. Chair, I just want to make one comment on that is if you decline to initiate the planning commission, it automatically is referred to the board. So there are no appeal has to happen with that. That's the process that's set forth in the Land Use and Development Code. If you decide to initiate, the way it gets to the board is an appeal by somebody who might be opposed to the concept. So that's the process. So no appeal happens if you decline to initiate and forward with your recommendations. And this planning commission could forward recommendations either with questions about the project and what they'd like to see if it comes back, with a recommendation that it be initiated, with a recommendation that it not be initiated. You have a full range of options in front of you in terms of what you would recommend to the board if you were to follow the recommendation that I had set forth. But again, it's up to the commission. You have the ability to initiate.
All right, now Commissioner Bradley.
Just following up on that, Director Plowman, so it could be appealed by the applicant. It could also be appealed by interested parties. It could be appealed by anybody as a method to get to the board, correct?
Yes, that's my understanding.
And at the time that you publish the staff report, nobody knows that inclination until we're at the hearing. So I'm guessing that may have been one of the reasons why your recommendation was as it sits, in that you were interested in getting this to the board by virtue of the ordinance that has very few options to get to the board, either conceptually or in some other path. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I can just clarify again. Director Plowman stated earlier, but I think just to make it super clear today, the options before you is to decline to initiate with the recommendation. That action automatically refers it to the board. So there's no appeal. It goes straight to the board. The second action, which is to initiate, that action is appealable, and that would go to the board only on appeal. So if you take the second action, which is to vote to initiate, then the next step is we start processing the application. The first action, which is to decline, then that triggers it to automatically go to the board for their review. And then they vote to initiate or not.
Right, and Commissioner Farini.
Okay, well, let's continue with that conversation. So one thing I've learned while being on this commission is that the design of our structure is that the planning commission with the planning and development department is to do the heavy lifting to prepare a project such as this for the board. So that was one. Two, so I've always felt that we don't just shove stuff up to the board, right? Because we don't want to deal with it, or we want to see what they think. The board has put that trust into us that we're to figure that out. So that weighs heavily on my mind. Secondly is following up with what Commissioner Cooney was saying. The way I understood that, and not to put words into Commissioner Cooney's thoughts there, but is there not a third way if the board wants to hear this? If we did approve for initiation, which does not mean approval of the project, it means the applicant and planning and development would move forward with the long journey ahead for this project. But can the board intercede at their will and direction and say, hey, we want to see this. We want this. We would like to put an item on our agenda to bring this project up because we feel that we want to learn more about it, we're excited, or it's controversial or whatever. Are we prohibiting them by not denying it or pushing it to them, or on their own free will, can they make a vote down there 3-2 to bring it down to them?
Commissioner Farini and the commission. So it's possible they could bring some sort of discussion item, but generally for planning items, we've tried to stay within the process that's set out in the Land Use and Development Code, in particular for projects that include a general plan amendment or a rezone, because there's also case law saying that first goes the Planning Commission for a recommendation and then the board. And if the board jumps in earlier, it could potentially cause some issues trying to streamline the process. So I would recommend following one of the paths that's set out in the LUDC. If you'd like the board to consider it on the earlier side, the path forward seems to be to decline acceptance. But that could include comments from your commission supportive of the project if that's where you land.
Thank you.
Mr. Martinez, did you have any questions of staff? Okay,
No, oh, there I go. Okay.
there you go.
No, actually, no, my only comment really is kind of rhetorical in a sense, but controversy after last week, I mean, that's nothing new. I've learned that now, so very welcome.
Surely you've learned in your career to ask rhetorical questions, have you not?
Never.
If not, I need to give you some coaching.
And I actually agree with what Commissioner Farini just said about taking on the load before going to the board. I believe that is something we have a responsibility at the sense. And I'm actually concerned if this commission declined, doesn't that would send whether it sends a message or not to the board. I'm concerned about that, to tell you the truth.
Very good.
Thank you.
Ms. Reese, I have a couple of questions on process. And it would help if you would bring up the recommendation slide again, if you can. Okay, my questions kind of have a different time horizon. I understand that the recommendation is to decline to accept this for processing at the planning commission level. It then goes up to the board, and that would go to the board right away, correct? But let's look down the road in terms of time. The board considers it, asks its questions, and may decide to go ahead with initiation, and then it would kick it back to the planning commission, would it not? No, we'd never see it.
Chair Park, you would see it again. So if the board were to accept the applications for processing, that would start the applicant on all the things they need to prepare, applications they need to get in, and we would take it once complete, once we did environmental review, back to the planning commission again for a recommendation to the board. And I want to clarify also that if you were to refer it to the board today, the code does require the planning commission to give a recommendation. It could be a recommendation in support or not in support of accepting.
Right. And even that discussion of recommendation might take quite some time among the planning commission members of exactly what to recommend. I mean, they aren't necessarily individual recommendations. It's a recommendation of the whole planning commission, correct? Okay. I've somehow noticed over time that collecting the individual opinions of planning commission members is one thing. Getting a consensus is a very different beast. So in essence, if we vote to decline, it'll go to the board. If the board wants to go ahead with initiation, it will ultimately come back to us, and we'll spend a lot of time on processing it, and it may take years, and then it goes back. So it comes back here. Now, if we go for the alternative, which is to vote to accept it for initiation, then there's a short-term process in that just about anybody can immediately appeal it to the board to challenge that decision. So then it'll get to the board right away anyway. Right? And if the board says no initiation, that stops it there. But if the board says Oh, go ahead with the initiation here at Planning Commission. You haven't decided what to do with this project yet, but go ahead and hear it. Then we hear it, the whole process. It may take years. And then somebody at that point can appeal it to the board again, correct? No?
Chair Park, members of the commission, if it got to the point where the planning commission was making a recommendation on the project to approve or deny to the board, that recommendation is not an appealable action. So no matter what, the board is the decision maker because it's a legislative action.
Right. What I'm getting at is if we process the project, if it's initiated and we process the project over years and make decisions on the project like any other project, development review project, that ultimately determination by the planning commission is reviewable by the board like any other project, is it not?
Mr. Chair. It is a decision that's ultimately made by the board. So you would be making a recommendation because of the general plan amendment and the rezones. It's a legislative action. So the PC's role is to make a recommendation to the board, then the board takes the final action.
Right. But either way, the board's going to look at, the board's going to make the final determination, which may come after months, if not years. And the planning commission would be involved in overviewing the whole project either way, unless the board says now, whoa, get off this horse, we're done. Otherwise, you have a pretty similar process. Okay, just wanted to be sure, because I think if we don't articulate that, it may look to members of the public that we're somehow taking the board out of the process by accepting this for initiation, which we clearly are not. And it also may look to people that we're taking the planning commission out of the process if we vote to decline, and we clearly are not either. Okay, well, let's hear what the appellants have, not the appellants.
Mr. Chair.
Are there any appellants in the room? I don't think so. How about
Mr.
applicants? We got any of those?
Mr. Chair, can I say one more thing before you move to the applicants?
Of course.
Thank you. I just wanted to address the concern that I'm hearing on the planning commission's part of the idea of sort of maybe not doing the heavy lifting or not doing the hard work. And I want to clarify that that is certainly not my intent. My intent is for you to have those difficult discussions today and do the heavy lifting today and provide the recommendation, not dissimilar to how it would be as if you were considering a project and you would make a recommendation to the board if it was a legislative action. So I just want to make sure that that's clear to you, that I encourage a very robust discussion about the merits of this project and whether it should move forward or not. And that's it. Thank you.
All right. Now let's proceed with the applicant's presentation. And you're going to take 20 minutes and I'll interrupt you at about 19 minutes if it looks like you're not getting far enough along. But don't think I'm giving you a hard time. I'm just helping you out.
Thank you. Thank you. Do I need to speak directly? I'll try and speak as loud as I can.
And hold that up just.
Yeah, I'll speak loud and then hopefully you guys can hear me.
Very good. What
morning.
time zone are you in right now?
I'm still in Europe, so
Okay.
a few hours behind. Okay, good morning, everyone. Chair Park, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Oscar Krohn. I am one of 3 owners of Solstad Communities, California. I'm Danish, not from Solvang, but really all the way from Denmark. On behalf of the team, we're very excited to be here at last, presenting our ideas to the Planning Commission. I want to take just a moment to acknowledge and thank the staff for all their hard work and collaboration of getting us to this point. So a little background. We bought this land and PCEC, the Pacific Coast Energy Company, more than 3.5 years ago. And from the beginning, we had a clear understanding that we were going to be here for a long time. We bought an oil company but we also invested into two overall fundamental trends. One is the growing demand for housing in North County for North County citizens and businesses. And the other is the eventual transition away from fossil fuel dependence and to a more sustainable future. I'll take the next slide here just to move a little bit forward. We have both a patient and a practical approach to our investments. And the opportunity we see here is to be both realistic about society's energy needs today, while at the same time embracing a bright future for this wonderful part of Santa Barbara County. Specifically, we see a part of this historical oil field as helping North County address its urgent need for jobs and housing, for well-designed, quality housing that attracts quality job growth, all designed and built sustainably in a vibrant and connected community. We are here to be part of that transitional process, to work alongside the community and to facilitate the development of this North County property into something new, attractive, and innovative. We've done these long-term developments before, and as an example, we're still involved in one project we started out 10 years ago. Since 2013, we've been building a mixed and diverse community on what was once a parking and logistical area for Northern Europe's largest convention center, which is actually in Copenhagen. As said, we're still there today, gradually building our way through. We've already built homes for some 4,000 people, and we expect to be there for the next 5 to 7 years. From an environmental perspective and from a social perspective, we want to build sustainably from construction and through the lifetime of the community. We want to reduce the impact on the environment, and we want to apply the latest knowledge and technologies to comply with the highest standards of energy and water consumption. We want to offer a diverse mix of houses and apartments and cutting-edge transportation concepts that promotes new life-work balance, sensibility, and quality of life. My partners and I are very fond of Santa Barbara County, and it's a wonderful place, and you and the generations before you have done a wonderful job in keeping this place special. So we're not here to tell you how to do this. From what we learned elsewhere, we hope that we can inspire new ideas and enable a collaborative process. We spent the last 3 years preparing for this, building a local team that we think can work on and understand and evaluate all aspects of this fantastic opportunity to create a new thriving community and perhaps provide some model for the region. We bring our own unique experience and knowledge of sustainable building and construction. And we also bring the ambition of making this a truly forward-looking and innovative community. As said, we've assembled a local team that, if initiated today and in due time, can present a full plan, one that will clearly show the benefits of building this new community. We're not asking today for you to approve our project. We're simply asking to initiate the study of our proposal, to give us and our local team the chance to work with you to create that plan. In little Denmark, we've always been told that in the US, they think big. So let's try and think big and come up with a grand plan for this area. It's a unique opportunity to provide real answers to the megatrends of transition, job growth, and housing demand. Thank you very much. That's my part, and I'll pass it on to Jack Washburn, who is captaining our local team.
Thank you, Mr. Crone.
Okay, great. Thank you, Oscar, Chair Park, and fellow commissioners. I'm Jackson Washburn. I'm the Development Director for Solomon Hills. As Oscar said, we are very pleased to be here today to discuss a unique and exciting opportunity. We are proposing to transition 2,000 acres of oil and gas land into a net zero carbon community. Think about that. That's exciting. Our team can't remember another proposal like this to be studied in this county, and we're very excited to be here to discuss it with you. The community will be nestled among the Solomon Hills over the ridge line from Orca. The characteristics of our property and our site plan allows us to provide growth without setting negative precedents. We will be using existing oil and gas lands, not viable farmland. It will have strict urban lines and be surrounded by existing and future conservation easements which will stop further development. It will be a state-of-the-art, modern, forward-thinking community embracing the best of the 21st century building and environmental standards. We will provide public access. We will provide public access and significant recreational opportunities. As said, the Orcutt oil field was discovered in 1901 and has been in constant production ever since. There used to be communities up there. There were 2 oil towns up there. They had schoolhouses, they had swimming pools, they had post office, they had parks, they had barbecues. It was a real thriving community. Eventually, the oil field got so robust that they pushed everybody down off the hill and created Old Town Orcutt. So while it's a beautiful piece of land, and you all that have been up there can attest to that, it is far from pristine. It has infrastructure running around electrical, roads, water lines, and other infrastructure that crisscross the property in service of the oil company that's been there for a long time. So as Oscar said, we've been working on this for a while. What I want to call the last years was the Great Listening Tour. We have met with over 100 individuals and have attended over 20 community events. And during that time, we started to understand that there is a paradigm shift happening. It's not complete, but it is happening. The old paradigm of thought is that the North County is job poor, but housing rich. Therefore, the old paradigm would make you believe that there is no demand for housing in the North except to provide commuter homes for people who work in Goleta and Santa Barbara. During the last year, we have heard something quite different than that. Currently, employers in the North and across the county are struggling with their current situation. In fact, you will be hearing from a few of them later in the proceedings, and you have seen additional comments in the many letters that were provided for this hearing. They are struggling to recruit and even keep employers, let alone plan for future growth. It is a chronic problem. There are a material percentage of current job positions that are either not filled or in a constant state of flux of potentially losing their employers or getting them cherry-picked from other employers. The cost and availability of workforce housing is one of the main drivers here. As Oscar said, in addition to public outreach, we've been doing our own kind of viability and feasibility analysis. And during that time, some things jumped out at us. In addition to the current struggles of employers with housing, the Santa Barbara County Association of Governments 2050 growth plan contemplate by 2050 that across the county, jobs will increase by 58,000 jobs. Population will increase by 68,000 people. And if you look deeper into those numbers, you'll recognize that 40% of the job growth is anticipated to be in the North. That represents over 22,000 jobs. 75% of the population growth is anticipated to be in the North. That represents over 50,000 people. So the largest takeaway we have from our listening tour and our diligence is that there is a current need for housing in the North. Workforce housing is a problem. And not only that, there's a large future need for housing in the North. The existing essential workforce, medical personnel, firefighters, public safety, teachers, and even oil field workers struggle to find housing. Given the North County growth projections, you can see how this will only get worse. No one seems to be immune from this. Vandenberg, major employers, even the county of Santa Barbara experience these same struggles. And this doesn't take into account the potential growth of Vandenberg. Cal Poly did a study that this could have an additional $1.5 billion economic impact to the region and add another 8,000 high-paying jobs. So with the county struggling with the status quo and these future growth projections, how can we as a community best manage this issue and plan and where this anticipated growth can go? I mean, some of the things that make the northern Santa Barbara County such a great place to live create challenges as to where this growth can happen. If you look at Santa Maria, you go east and west of it, you have prime producing agricultural farmland. You come south, you're into the airport area and all their constraints. You come south of that, you're in Orcutt. And as we all know, they're building out their key sites. Our location is perfectly situated to address this long-term growth issues and challenges. And we think the logical place to look is a 100-year-old oil field that's looking and has the ability to transition out of that. So part of what we've done is when we were thinking about how our infrastructure and how our development will work, we look to key guiding documents that the state, the county, and have put out there. And that's what we looked. We have the opportunity here to build and design a green, sustainable community that can be the standard for Santa Barbara County and the rest of the state moving forward. So we are proposing that the eastern 2,000 acres of the oil field will transition into a sustainable, vibrant, and diverse community for North County people. All oil and gas operations in the 2,000 area will cease, be abandoned and cleaned up, and a moratorium on any further oil and gas operations will be put in place there. Primary access on the 101, secondary access on the 135. The west side of our development is within 10 miles of the Vandenberg Gate. We are also very excited about the possibility of designing an internal trail system that will connect the Orcutt Trail system with the Los Flores Trail system. This is a very important way to foster a vibrant community and allow equitable access to the recreational areas. So this chart is showing the different components of our community. 60% will be open space, parks, and trails. 30% residential. 6% is essential infrastructure. As discussed earlier, we are proposing to build schools, fire station, our own wastewater system, and we have also commercial. So the commercial will be there to support the Solomon Hills development areas, but also we envision a 50-acre work campus that can support up to 2,000 jobs. As we discussed earlier, we recognize the current and future need for workforce housing. Solomon Hills will be a community with a wide variety of home types: affordable, multifamily, single-family rental, single family for sale, 55 plus, executive. But also, we're going to build this to address that missing middle, that workforce housing. Over 60% of what we're envisioning will be below 2,000 square feet and designed with workforce housing in mind. This is where it gets very exciting for me. Because we are starting with a blank slate, it allows us to really lean into being a model for a sustainable community. We don't have existing roads and infrastructure, so we can build this community from the ground up, thinking about sustainability and technology to make our community live better with the environment. We plan to be a net zero carbon emissions community, all electric, relying extensively on solar panels on homes, businesses, as well as other parts of the community. We'll be able to build a new sewage treatment plant, which will allow us to use 100% recycled water for all our landscaping, as well as create situations where we can percolate the water back down into the aquifers. We can design from scratch our landscaping to make it drought sensitive and lessen the water use. It'll allow us to use smart technology to help us be a water sense community. In our homes, businesses, and parks, we can install things like smart water controllers that will turn on and off when the moisture of the soil reaches a certain level, not just timers on and off. It allows you to be very sensitive to water use. We will have electric autonomous vehicles driving throughout the communities to connect the communities, to get people out of their cars. We will have strategically situated bikes and electric bikes throughout the community to, again, help people get out of their cars. We also will be building an on-site fire station. Because we're starting from scratch, it allows us to put all of our electrical infrastructure underground to make it more resilient and less adverse to fire. We can put fire-resistant materials, but also it allows us to, over the entire community, put in HOA fire protection areas where the HOA is maintaining them. And if the fire chief or somebody needs to come talk to somebody about that, it's a one-stop shop. It's not talking to every single property owner. Starting from scratch really allows us to get creative. So in summary, at its core, Solomon Hills is about addressing the North County challenges that I discussed earlier. The compelling parts of this proposal is that due to the size and singular ownership position with a robust and knowledgeable local team, we have a rare opportunity to truly make a meaningful, positive impact to the future of the North County and the region. So let me just do a quick review of the Solomon Hills, why it's beneficial. While this is zoned AG2, it has been in oil operations for over 100 years. This is more of a brownfield redevelopment project. This property has existing roads and infrastructure that has serviced the oil operations for a long time. We will provide significant workforce housing by providing 4,000 units of varying size, but the majority focusing on the missing middle that is a challenge in the North County. It allows us to embrace the new trends in work. We can design a community that encourages work from home and more people telecommuting with the assistance of places like WeWork to give additional support and infrastructure when needed. We're also planning the 50-acre business park, as we discussed. We truly believe that our sustainable design, mixes of product type, housings near work, and the proximity to Vandenberg will attract innovative companies that will be looking at the North County that have been looking at the North County for a while, but not been able to figure out a way to move here. So to echo what Oscar said, we are very excited to be here to present this exciting opportunity. And I'd like to pass this off to Jay Higgins, who represents our land planning group.
Morning, Mr. Chair. Jay Higgins, Solstra's land use agent. Jackson has covered why we think now's the time for something like this. And how unique the property is. And so this slide shows, if you can sort of read it, where we've been and where we'd like to head if initiated today. Here are the major subject areas that we will study that will inform our design and a future project. A note on this process that I should highlight is that we expect and really must have a highly interactive engagement with all counties, all county departments, Caltrans, school districts, resource agencies ahead of submitting further plans or documents into P&D. We're not going to do this in a vacuum because something like this needs a lot of partners and a lot of input. We expect regular meetings with representatives from all departments and agencies, and almost an iterative version of the County Subdivision Review Committee roundtable as we refine public infrastructure plans and expectations, trail locations, architecture, amongst other things. Step one is for us to refine our product mix and specific commercial areas and types so we can better predict traffic volumes, intersection capacities, road widths, not to mention the size and capacity of the sewer treatment plant. I need to go back. Excuse me. Jackson really covered most of this, but some of it bears repeating. For public recreation, this won't be the ad hoc or exaction system for public trails that the county currently, we have that current context of exactions for trails that come alongside with discretionary applications for development. This is an opportunity for the county and the community to design and build and dedicate trails that connect Orchid all the way through Solomon Hills to Los Flores Ranch Park. That's a big deal today compared to how currently the county has to back into trail agreements. With a long history of oil development on the property, we already know that there are sensitive biological resources. We know there are CTS ponds on the property that, according to U.S. Fish and Wildlife regs, are assumed to have salamanders. And so our approach to that is, and we think we can accommodate conservation areas on site. We're not simply walking into this to think we can purchase mitigation credits. We think we have the room on the property to do it correctly. Here's my last slide. True to form, I will be asking for extra innings. just to refocus our request here today, general plan initiations are a little unusual, so we chase this in the government code. And the government code states that a legislative body who wants to start an amendment process really just needs to decide it's in the public interest to do so. So I'm not talking about specific findings or a threshold for your approval today. It's just a basic understanding that this is at least in the public interest to begin a larger conversation. We think we've laid out a very unique and exciting opportunity that definitely warrants further study. Housing supply, managed decline of oil production, public trails, those are certainly within the realm of public interest. We agree that our request definitely needs to be heard by you today to provide a broader perspective, allow for public input, and give us an opportunity to demonstrate to you that our framework is on the right path. And we think we've demonstrated that. We're not asking for broad policy changes to existing code. We will work within the existing code while incorporating a vision for future growth that has a smaller footprint and impact on the county we all love so much. And we realize the request for an applicant initiated and sponsored general plan amendment is infrequent and rare. And it's rare because long range planning like this is easily overshadowed by the planning issues of the day. But dedicating the energy and focus on a long-term horizon will ensure that North County can keep pace with its projected growth. Remember, we're talking about aligning jobs and population increase along a 25-year horizon. It's a long-term project. And the scale of this undertaking is large, but that scale is what provides for the project's innovation, net zero goals, thoughtful design, and large-scale open space. It's a unique opportunity for the county to study and plan for a forward-thinking net zero mission community, which will provide jobs, housing, and open space for future generations. And it'll help the North County stay ahead of the discrepancies we're seeing play out on the South Coast today. This can be a village center, homes surrounding it, bike and hiking trails all through it, with services and jobs built in on land already designated for potential urbanization according to your own comprehensive plan. So to summarize, we are seeking your unanimous vote today to initiate, which is option 2 in staff's recommendations. This will allow us a process to start and give us the opportunity to inform a future project discussion to come along with answers to a host of questions, policy or otherwise. So we're asking for your decision today because we think that you can seize that sort of horizon. And I know I didn't end on 0, but I appreciate the extra time. We do have a number of experts here with us that can answer questions, and perhaps the best time for that is after public comment, but we can certainly take some questions now.
And if your experts need to speak, they'll speak during your rebuttal period as
That's
opposed to
correct.
during public comment. I hope everybody
Understood.
realizes that. You weren't too far off, but you'll have 7 minutes left for rebuttal. All right. So now what we're going to do is take a potty break. 10 minutes. I'm on. I thought I was always on, but so we are reconvening. And we finished the applicant's presentation for now. And now is the time for public comment. How many Zoom people do we have?
We currently have 4 members in attendance, although I believe I see one of them is actually a staff person, so 3.
Okay, are any of those self-selected 1-minute people?
Let's ask them. Oh, one hand went down. It looks like maybe we have 1 hand remains, so perhaps. Oh, no
Okay.
hands remain. I think everyone wants their 3 minutes.
They want their 3 minutes. Okay, then you may wait for hours, if not what seems like days. Do we have any 1-minute people out here in the audience? No,
Mr. Chair, a hand went back up.
we do have one. Okay, we've got 2. Then we're going to start with you. All right. Another one.
I'm all of this. Good morning, Chair Park and Commissioners. My name is Ramon Elias. My wife and I live in Santa Maria, and we have been rural Santa Barbara County landowners for about 20 years. We have read the staff report requesting a general plan amendment and a rezone for the proposed Solomon Hills project. And we do support accepting the application for processing. We feel there is a clear need to accommodate a growing, vibrant area like Santa Maria. The proposed plan to develop non-agricultural lands, pretty much so, is certainly worth consideration and analysis. Not only is the proposed study pertinent, but we feel it can serve as a model or template for future projects. So in summary, our county, I think, can only benefit by engaging in innovative projects like this. And we urge the Planning Commission to approve the developer's request for processing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Elias. And we had another 1-minute speaker. Are you a 1-minute speaker? No, you're a 3-minute. It's either 1 or 3. Okay, we're not going to go 2, 2.5, 1 and 13 seconds. It's going to be. Okay, so let's go to our Zoom 1 minute.
And we're back to Mr. Osliger.
Hi, all. I really appreciate your time and the opportunity to speak. My name is Dylan Osliger. I'm the Executive Director of Sage Trail Alliance. We've played a part in trails, open space, and community recreation in Santa Barbara County since 1988. We're an integral voice in the Santa Barbara County Rec Plan and also sit on Governor Newsom's California 30x30 conservation panel. We just want to be in support of this project moving forward in study. Not only will it realize the inequality that currently exists in trail access found in the North County, but it'll act as really an innovative development project with how an EIR interacts with community development and trails. We are in favor of approving this and wish to be a part of it moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Osliger. Okay, now we're going to go to Dominic Berry, followed by Ken Delabout. And I may mispronounce your names, but sometimes that's because you're the ones who are writing them out in your handwriting.
Is this on? Yeah.
It is.
Okay, good.
3 minutes. Thanks.
Good morning, Park Chair or Chair Park and the commissioners. I'm Dominic Berry. I'm the president of Quintron Systems. Quintron is about a $10 million a year company. We're a high-tech company here in the Santa Maria Valley. We build mission critical communication systems for NASA, the Department of Defense, and the commercial space launch industry. as a technology company, we are constantly looking for high-tech personnel, and we literally compete on a national level for that personnel. As a result, in order to attract individuals to the Santa Maria area, we are actually competing with very attractive markets, such as San Jose, the Bay Area, Phoenix, Atlanta. I now have more employees in Atlanta, I think, at times than I do here in Santa Maria, because that's the way we have to compete. And one of the reasons we can't attract people to the Santa Maria area is directly related to quality communities and housing. I recently have lost multiple employees who left specifically stating they love working here but can't afford to buy a home in Santa Maria. This causes a constant churn for me, where I'm constantly having to find mid-level to high-level technology personnel. And as I said, housing is a major component to that. In 2013 to 2017, my wife and I lived in the Denver Tech Center. During our time in the Denver Tech Center, we observed multiple fully integrated communities grow from the ground up. By fully integrated, I mean they included housing, restaurants, services, parks, trails, bike trails, and of course, housing. And they were all developed simultaneously. And these developments literally went up. We watched 3 of them in the 4 years that we were in the Denver Tech Center. These fully integrated environments also filled almost instantaneously. They filled with young mid-level professionals and the service personnel necessary to service that community. Those that know me know that I tend to question development projects that appear to be housing for housing's sake. I look to developments that appear to have a holistic approach to them. Holistic being that balance between work life and home life. The Solomon Hills project has that feel. It really has a holistic intent, and therefore, I believe, is a benefit to me, not only as a resident of Orchid, but as someone who runs an aerospace company and needs high-tech personnel. I believe this will help me attract people to the area and not have to fight with out of state or nice communities, such as I mentioned before. I'm also attracted to this project because of its reuse of existing industrial lands and its goal to link the various trails that exist, the Orchid Hills Trail, the Las Flores Ranch trails, through the creation of a Solomon Hills Trail segment. I think that's very important for part of this whole holistic opportunity.
Mr. Barry, are you
Therefore,
about ready to wrap up?
I was just about to wrap up.
Go
and
for
say, therefore, I encourage you to move this project forward and allow it to move to its next level within the environmental process. Thank you.
Thanks for coming today, Mr. Barry. Yes,
Just really quickly.
Mr. Bradley.
Thank you, Mr. Barry, and I appreciate your letter in the packet too. Could, without disclosing anything too much, can you give us a range of the employee group that is at most risk in terms of moving because of housing problems? What
Well,
is the salary range?
Okay, so it's interesting because each salary range has its own issue. So, if I've got an $80,000 a year employee, he's going to have trouble finding a home. I've lost a few of those. I lost one that was being paid $130,000 for exactly the same reason. I'm getting married. I can't find a home that meets my needs at 130. Each segment, and that's in fact, the Solomon Hills project has that balance. It's a full spectrum of housing,
Okay,
so it's not just one particular salary group.
all right.
Both my kids are in the same situation. Both of them are in that range where they just can't find a house.
Mr. Barry,
Thank you.
let me follow up that question. Since you're thinking about it, right? And that is, take the same question, don't break it down in terms of salary range, but age range. Okay?
Yeah.
And of course, you got 2 kids, so you think about that a lot.
Mhm.
And is there what age groups are struggling to stay here?
Well, I participated in a thing in Lompoc a few years back, and I referred to Lompoc as being a donut. In the sense that I'll call them kids, between 25 and 35, maybe 40, tend to look elsewhere. They
Right.
tend to be attracted by other markets. Like I mentioned, the Denver Tech Center, that they tend to be attracted to those markets because they have a variety of options for their pay levels. And not only that, those markets pay a little better.
Very good. Thank you.
Mhm.
So Mr. Dillabout, to be followed by John Hooter.
Good morning, Chair Park, Commissioners. I'm Ken Dale-About. I'm a Vice President for Marion Regional Medical Center here in Santa Maria, which is part of Dignity Health. I'm speaking on behalf of Dignity Health and Marion Regional Medical Center as I present. Marion Regional Medical Center is 191-bed hospital, 900 million in annual revenues, and employs 3,300 employees and physicians here in Santa Maria, or they work here in Santa Maria. As part of the executive team for the hospital, I have a shared responsibility to ensure that the hospital and local healthcare remains vibrant and it meets the needs of the community. There is a direct relationship between having adequate housing and having a healthy community. One of the areas of concern for the hospital is the ability to continue to attract quality staff. We make offers to fill positions that to potential employees, including physicians that routinely are declined because of the cost of housing, and also the lack of desirable or diversity of housing types. A large number of our employees commute from San Luis Obispo County and beyond this valley. Today, for example, in terms of shortage of, or our need, we have over 250 needed positions that are currently unfilled and somewhat chronically unfilled. Additionally, our current long-range planning efforts call for a hospital expansion, a new tower, in order to serve just the projected additional growth of population in North County. This will translate into a significant increase in the future of the number of employees needed to serve our residents. Solomon Hills proposal has the potential to bring 4,000 needed homes to North County with a variety of affordable and workforce housing types. This type of housing fills a current and future need for our healthcare industry here. As we all work to solve our housing challenges and plan for the future, Solomon Hills has the great potential to be part of that long-term solution. And not to be self-promoting, but it is true that a strong hospital sits at the heart of a strong, confident, vibrant community. A strong hospital and healthcare system needs housing. Therefore, I urge your commission to please approve Solstra's request to initiate the Solomon Hills project to include plans to complete all necessary environmental studies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Devout, to taking your time to see us today. John Hooter, be followed by Ted Wendell.
Apparently I need to improve my penmanship. My name is John Hooten.
Hooten.
It's okay. I've been getting that all my life.
Shows where I go to restaurants.
No, that's fine. I'm Executive Director of College Advancement for Allen Hancock College, part of the executive team there. As you know, we're one of the larger employers in northern Santa Barbara County with 1,300 employees. We enroll 11,500 students every year. Tens of thousands of alumni come through Hancock College. To echo a lot of what's being said here, employee retention and attraction is incredibly important for us, as well as places for our alumni to go and stay here in Santa Barbara County, for them to be able to afford places to live. The salary range that our graduates get, even with an associate's degree, could allow them to live in a place like Solomon Hills. And Solomon Hills would also free up housing stock in Santa Maria and surrounding areas for our students and our families and our employees to be able to live in Santa Maria. So we urge you to advance this on to the board. We're in support of pretty much any housing that would allow our students and our alumni and our staff and faculty places to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Ted Wendell to be followed by Kristen Miller.
Chair Park, members of the commission, my name's Ted Wendell. I'm somewhat intimidated. I've got to go longer than a minute and shorter than 3 minutes, so you might hear me sing at the end of my remarks.
Okay, we'll just hum a few bars and we might join you.
Join in. Like I said, my name's Ted Wendell. I'm Senior Vice President for A.T. Still University. You might not be familiar with our university, but it's 130 years old. Started in Kirksville, Missouri. It's a founding school of osteopathic medicine. We have 2 other campuses other than Kirksville. We have one in Mesa that we developed over the last 25 years. And about 3 years ago, we started a campus here in Santa Maria, California. Right now, we employ about 14 local individuals. We have 90 students a year that come to our campus for their education. We'd like to grow in this community, but we face a significant problem, and that's affordable housing. You've heard about projections for 2050. That problem is here today, and we have to begin to solve it with the proposals like you're considering. Our students, our faculty, and our staff seek affordable housing with access to community amenities, healthy food, and recreational activities like the proposal that you're considering today. Over the last 3 years, we've lost chances to hire very qualified individuals because they're sophisticated buyers and they see the opportunity to join a growing dynamic university setting, but have trouble finding affordable housing and choose to go somewhere else. And that's very frustrating for us. We'd like to develop this campus to add programs, but we need to address this issue and we need to see a pathway forward. I urge you to approve Solstra's request. 4,000 houses in this community distributed the way they're planning, addressing the needs of our students and our faculty and staff is a tremendous opportunity for us to grow. I strongly support Solstra's request and hope you approve their study so that we can move forward without delay on this dramatic opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wendell. Next will be Kristen Miller, and we'll follow that with whoever Mr. Villalobos chooses out of our Zoom speakers. And then after the whoever that might be, it'll be John Richards here from the audience. Okay.
Hello, Chair Park and Planning Commissioners. My name is Kristen Miller. I'm President and CEO of the Santa Barbara South Coast Chamber of Commerce, representing businesses from Goleta to Carpinteria. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to speak in support of the Solomon Hills project and the initiation request before you today. Through my work at the Chamber, I have the amazing benefit of daily conversations with business representatives across various industries. Not a day goes by that I don't have a conversation about the severe workforce-related challenges that our county's lack of housing supply places upon our businesses. There is not enough progress being made on housing to meet the needs of our economy, our employers, and the next generation. Yesterday, the Chamber released The Road Home, a living document which discusses the current state of our region's housing crisis from a business and community perspective, as well as our top 4 proposed solutions. The Solomon Hills project is among these major solutions. Solomon Hills is exactly the type of ambitious and forward-thinking project that the Chamber and businesses throughout the county have been waiting for. This project represents the potential to make significant proactive progress on addressing our housing needs. Our Chamber is not alone in our support for this project. The Santa Barbara South Coast, Santa Maria Valley, Lompoc Valley, and Buellton Chambers have all supported this project together because just as our housing crisis is a countywide issue, we see this project as a countywide solution. Even our Tri-County Chamber Alliance, which includes chambers of commerce from San Luis Obispo County, Santa Barbara County, and Ventura County, has supported the Solomon Hills project. The Tri-County Alliance sees the benefit that a project of this scale will have on our regional economy, and more importantly, what a failure to support this project means about Santa Barbara County's commitment to proactively addressing our housing crisis and what that would mean for the future of our regional economy. Please support the Solomon Hills initiation request and take the next step in making significant progress toward addressing our region's housing needs. Thank you for your time and your service to our communities.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Who do we have on Zoom, Mr. Villalobos?
Excuse me, joining us remotely is Ken Huff.
Go ahead, Mr. Huff. And then
Good morning,
after Mr. Huff, we'll have John Richards.
Good morning, Chair Park and Commissioners. I'm Ken Huff, representing the Santa Barbara County Action Network. SBCAN for 21 years has been advocating for social, environmental, and economic justice across the county. We've had a couple of presentations from the team of Solstra at our roundtable meetings over the course of the year. And there are a lot of aspects of the proposal that we appreciate, such as the development of affordable housing, the trail connections, all electric buildings, and that the oil and gas infrastructure would be permanently sealed and abandoned. But we also share the concerns that are outlined in the staff report about greenhouse gas emissions from increased vehicle miles traveled. We're concerned about the significant expansion of the urban-rural boundary and of the conversion of agricultural land. We're also concerned that the affordable units are not guaranteed to be affordable long-term, and that they might not be enough to meet the additional need for affordable housing that would be generated by the executive and market rate housing. If this moves forward, we'd love to see the developer partner with organizations like that County Housing Authority or People's Self-Help Housing to ensure that ample units are affordable for the long haul. We support the staff recommendation to not initiate today, then therefore to forward it to the Board of Supervisors. This will allow an opportunity for more community input. It will also, for SBCAN, allow me an opportunity to bring this to my Board of Directors so they could decide whether to encourage the board to initiate the project or not. And that discussion will be informed by your deliberations today. So thank you very much.
Mr. Huff, Commissioner Briley has a question for you.
Hi, Mr. Huff, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. So I did attend one of your meetings where Solstra made a presentation, but am I interpreting your comments to say that you've never actually had a board discussion formally of the case? Is that correct?
This is correct. They haven't taken a position on it. They've heard about it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Richards, are you here? And then after Mr. Richards, we'll have Victoria Connor.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm John Richards. I live in Orchid. How y'all doing today? I've been a homeowner in Orchid, and I must say, I'm probably going to be the lone wolf today. It's so far. I've been a homeowner in Orchid for over 2 decades now. Prior to that, I lived on the South Coast. I was the original president of the Citizens for the Carpinteria Bluffs. We raised over $6 million to purchase that beachfront property and turn it into a active park area and conservation area. We accomplished that formidable task by receiving mostly $1, $5, $10, and $20 donations from all of the citizens in concerned citizens. They were from all over the state and other states, as a matter of fact. It would be wonderful if a group could come together and purchase and preserve the Solomon Hills, but this is a different world now, and I do not believe it is necessary to purchase the Solomon Hills in order to preserve them. You have that ability. In recent comments and an opinion to News Talk, Third District Supervisor Joan Hartman lamented the fact that the state of California was mandating that the county rezones existing county parcels, meaning county-owned and ag lands, for almost 6,000 affordable units. The term affordable is nebulous. How do you get to affordable? Really, in today's market with the cost of land and building materials, affordable is a difficult target. And over 4,100 units are headed for the South Coast. For the past several years, there have been several large market rate, meaning not low cost, affordable housing and commercial developments approved on the South Coast. And the city of Goleta has added 1,400 affordable units. Supervisor Hartman is now concerned that the mandates don't consider our local challenges such as water supply, high cost of land, or in Santa Barbara County areas bordered by ocean, mountains, and national forest. The question of water should be tantamount to this project and all housing projects in the entire state as well. In spite of the recent rains, the state is still in a drought status. The County of Board of Supervisors has a long tradition of supporting and protecting our agricultural and ranching lands and should continue that tradition. Solomon Hills may not have much usable farming land, but its pastures and bucolic setting will be forever gone if this project is allowed to proceed. The cry has been to create affordable housing near jobs. Creating a 500,000 square foot light industry complex in this community is not in the spirit of solving either aspect of the more significant issues, affordability and proximity. Most of the residents in this new community would still be commuting either to Santa Maria, Santa Barbara, Lompoc, or San Luis Obispo. I have over 30 years of experience on the lending side of the housing industry, and this program should not get out of the gate. Please accept the staff recommendation and do not allow this to proceed. And I'm wearing my body armor here, so you can't shoot me. Thank you.
There you go. Okay, Victoria Connor to be followed by Lindy Hetcher.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Vicki Connor. I'm Initiatives Director for Econ Alliance, which is a cross-industry, cross-sector nonprofit existing to help Northern Santa Barbara County key industries and communities thrive. In this work, we often hear, as the chambers do, how much housing costs inhibit North County attraction and retention of workers in all key industries. Housing costs also impact attraction of new missions to Vandenberg and new companies with family wage jobs to the area. With the projected North County growth, this issue is only likely to get worse, has been illustrated this morning. And the addition of 4,000 housing units at various price points serving various housing needs from entry-level workers to executives with numerous options in between could have a very positive impact on the ability of companies and communities to address their current worker housing needs. Allowing the Solomon Hills principals for the project to take the next step in the planning process would allow which is initiating the project, of course, would allow the county its due diligence in regard to any concerns about ag, equity, environment, whatever, without closing the door on what could possibly provide a major opportunity to address North County housing needs for every North County industry, every family, and every community in the North County. Thank you.
Thank you. Lindy Hetcher. And then I think Mr. Villalobos, let's take another Zoom person after Ms. Hetcher. We don't have any more? They've all given up. Okay. And then so after Ms. Hetcher, we'll have Dustin Hoyseth.
All right. Good morning, Chair Park and Commissioners. I'm Lindy Hatcher, Executive Director of the Home Builders Association of the Central Coast. This is my first time speaking with you, so it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for hearing us. So the HBA represents 15 builders on the Central Coast, which is SLO in Santa Barbara County, and then 85 associate members and community partners. And we work with all of our community partners, members, and local leaders to provide communities that better the Central Coast. And we support projects like Solomon Hills. We believe it's a huge step toward the long-term enhancement of the Santa Barbara County northern area. And it offers a unique one parcel, one owner plan and creates a model community that's innovative for the future. One that creates a vibrant and connected community, in addition to provided the needed homes. This project would provide the required housing to attract and broaden projects like the Space Force Base. Given its 10-mile proximity to the base, it would lower VMTs traveling from other areas. At Representative Salud Carvajal's recent Workforce Housing Roundtable, we heard from Colonel Long that workforce housing is the #1 barrier to attracting and retaining good employees. And I need to point out, not everyone qualifies for affordable housing. And there's certain workforces we need to keep in mind that we're trying to attract, like for the hospital and for the Space Force Base and colleges that will not qualify for the affordable housing. Not to say we don't need that too. So the lack of workforce housing stifles our economic opportunities like Space Force. We need to be ready to step into those opportunities as they arise. And to do that, we need more workforce housing. Therefore, I respectfully ask that the commission approves Solster's request to initiate the Solomon Hills project and be able to move forward with the next phase of a detailed study. This proposal, again, has the potential to bring up to 4,000 needed homes to North County with a variety of workforce housing types and available to lease and own. This long-term Solomon Hills opportunity is also a good balance to the smaller, shorter-term infill projects that we see throughout the county. We need to be looking at all solutions to address our housing needs. And I would just ask that you initiate the Solomon Hills project. In my last couple of seconds, I'm going to put on a different hat. I'm the president of the Anza Trail Foundation for the Juan Bautista de Anza National Historic Trail, the treasure in our backyard. And it's exciting to see that this project could connect to that National Historic Trail around our 250th anniversary coming up.
Thank you, Ms. Hatcher. So Dustin Hoyseth to be followed by Ron Kronk.
Hello, Chair Park and Commissioners. My name is Dustin Hoyseth. I'm the Public Policy Manager with the Santa Barbara South Coast Chamber of Commerce. We represent businesses from Goleta to Carpinteria. I'm here today to express my support of the Solomon Hills project and the initiation request before you today. For years, businesses have told the Chamber that their highest barrier to business vitality is housing for their workforce. As a result, the Chamber has advocated in support of appropriate housing projects throughout our communities in order to address the supply aspect of our local housing shortage. While increasing supply is critical to meeting our community's overall housing needs, sometimes a particular project does not alleviate the needs of a specific business that is struggling with employee housing. It all comes down to whether one of their employees gets into one of the units. However, one of the major advantages of a forward-looking project of this scale is the ability to think bigger about how we can work together as a community to address the challenges created by our local housing crisis. The Chamber is willing to work with the county and the applicant to put together a coalition of businesses throughout the county who would come together and support an employer-sponsored housing program at Solomon Hills, similar to what we have seen with Cottage Health and Westmont College. Employers are already paying other costs through subsidized rents, company rented units, relocation assistance, and more. This program would represent an opportunity to make a more tangible long-term investment toward addressing the same issues. While it is important to account for the VMT reductions for employees that live in Solomon Hills, who would otherwise be commuting possibly longer distances from outside of Santa Barbara County, we do understand that employee commutes to the South Coast could be a concern associated with this project. That is why, as part of the previously mentioned coalition, we are also open to exploring a partnership between local businesses and the applicant to provide EV ride sharing and/or shuttle programs. There's so much potential to a project like Solomon Hills, but we can't begin unless the applicant's initiation request is granted. Please support the initiation request before you. And based on what I understand of today's discussion, the Chamber asks that you make a recommendation to the board to initiate. I thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Hoyseth. So next we'll have Ron Kronk to be followed by Glenn Morris.
I'm well, thank you. Good morning, Chair Park and Commissioners. My name is Ron Kronk, and I am here to encourage you to support the study of this new community today, this new concept. While scanning through some of the letters you have received, I was struck by the number of concerns expressed about housing for employers in their organizations, and you've heard from a number of them again today. This is a problem I'm familiar with, and I'd like to share with you how two organizations on the South Coast have been transformed by addressing this issue. I still remember 30 years ago when the chair of the English department at Westmont College came to me and said he couldn't even convince a candidate to apply for the position because she'd heard that housing was simply unaffordable in our area. This was disheartening to me as the person responsible for our housing programs as the Vice President for Administration and Finance. It was a few years later that we initiated a program to develop 41 homes on 30 acres that the college owned adjacent to the campus. These homes were built in the 1990s and sold to new and newer faculty members who qualified under housing conditions set by the city of Santa Barbara. More recently, the college built 13 townhomes to increase the supply, and these units are also subject to the restrictions set by the city. It was a priority for the college and the community that these homes be affordable initially, but also remain affordable for future generations of faculty members. Now, it's been more than 25 years since those first homes were sold, and the ability to offer affordable housing to new educators has been transformative for the college's recruiting process. The lack of suitable housing is no longer a barrier to attracting and retaining faculty members. In fact, just 2 weeks ago, I was having breakfast with a senior faculty member, and he told me how the ability to buy a home in the area was a major factor in recruiting a highly sought after candidate again just last year. Now, Cottage Hospital has a similar experience by building 81 townhouses for their medical professionals. These were completed about 10 years ago and were sold out almost immediately to those qualified employees on their waiting list. As a member of the board of directors overseeing this program, I've heard how important this has been for the hospital to hire and retain the medical staff needed to care for our community. As a result of my involvement in these two organizations, as well as conversations with many others, I have dreamed of ways that employers might have similar experiences. I envision a consortium of businesses and nonprofit organizations partnering together with a developer and local government to create housing for their employees and ensure that it remains affordable for the long term. I think the concept that you have here at Solomon Hills is an ideal place to make this happen. And it looks to me like there's a lot of interest on this by local employers. So I urge your support to push this dream forward and make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kronk. Glenn Morris, to be followed by Todd Wilson. And Mr. Wilson, you'll have the last word unless somebody jumps out of their seat and fills out a speaker slip and gets it to me right away. Otherwise, we'll be done with public comment.
It's always nice to see the end of the road, right?
There, well, no.
Good morning, Chair.
I'm clearing 70. I don't agree with that anymore, but
it's all a matter of perspective, right?
Got it.
Well, Chair Park, members of the commission, thank you for the opportunity to be with you today. Glenn Morris, I represent the Santa Maria Valley Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development Organization. And I think today you've heard the reasons why this project is needed in terms of market demand. I'd like to take and share just 4 quick thoughts with you that maybe pull the lens back a little bit and maybe add a different perspective as we've just talked about. First, I think we're always struggling with, it seems like our planning today is reactionary, right? We're always trying to catch up, and projects are being brought to planners and decision makers because of existing need or need that has been unmet. this opportunity, this project, and hopefully others like it, allow us the opportunity to maybe begin to change that dynamic and to get to a point where projects are planned far enough in advance that they are actualized based on the demand coming from the market, and that our planning efforts can be reasoned and well thought out and well studied because we have the time to do them long into the future. So I think this is a unique opportunity to begin to change that paradigm of planning. We've heard comments about the extending the urban boundary and creating new urban land. I would remind us that state law, and I believe county policy, pushes us to put people and residences and housing and communities that are in those urban environments. That's where they're supposed to be, where services can be provided in efficient manners. So I think this fits that model as well. You've been encouraged today to maybe take a pass and to let the Board of Supervisors weigh in and express opinion before the project is initiated. I would argue that your responsibility to them is actually the opposite. I think the best service you can provide to the supervisors is to ensure that when they do review the project, that they are able to do so with full information, with a full story that includes all of the variables and the questions that are going to be raised, having been fully studied and analyzed, and they are then able to make a final decision, as is their role, based on that full record that can only be created once the project is initiated and the studies and the environmental impacts and all of the different analysis takes place. And finally, Commissioner Martinez, you mentioned early on that you were concerned about a potential unintended message that might be sent to the board based on this recommendation today. I would also argue that there's a potential unintended consequence of your actions today to the general public. I think that a decision to not make a decision calls into question the credibility of our county leadership about whether we really truly are serious about solving the housing problems, not just today, but into the future, and whether we're willing to think about unique and out-of-the-box solutions, or if we're going to continue to just stay on the same hamster wheel we've been on for the last many decades. With that, I would encourage you to take action today and make a decision to initiate the project, allow the applicant to do that hard work along with your staff, and present ultimately to the community and the Board of Supervisors a full record on which to make a final decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. You addressed a lot of tough issues. Mr. Wilson, are you here? There you go. You get the last word.
Thank you. My name's Todd Wilson. I'm a homeowner in Orchid. I just saw this application yesterday evening on NewsHawk, and I think it paints a red flag. I looked through the planning department, their folders of public comments, and I saw lots of letterheads. I only saw one individual write a comment. Some of the comments today from business comments, all acceptable, but where are the people of Orchid? Where are they? It's a red flag. I recommend not accepting this application. I don't think it's ready for even to be presented to you for acceptance. There's been no vetting with the public. I wasn't even aware this project was on the board. I've been watching planning matters over the last 5 or so years. Orderly growth is one of the mandates of the Orchid Community Plan and good public policy. And after the last 4 general plan amendment projects, I have no trust county planning and 4th district managers can adequately bring this project without resolving adequate conflicts. I've commented to you before, half-baked projects come from the planning department to the decision makers, and the public then has to come out, and you've experienced those meetings when the public finally comes out, and it's way too late. There may be a project here. I'm not against growth. I'm a retired property appraiser and a retired banker. And so I've dealt with real estate extensively. It would take citizens' participation, but in my opinion, it's time for cityhood of the community of Orchid And I think this project requires mandates LAFCO review. It needs more intense review than what we've seen before. $500,000 to $700,000 is not affordable to this citizen base. Historically, we all know more supply is not the end-all solution. So I recommend that you not accept the application and forward your recommendation to Board of Supervisors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Okay, that's it for public comment. Rebuttal time for the applicants. 7 minutes.
Mr. Chair, thank you. This is the South Coast 30 to 40 years ago, this dialogue that started and became so significant in terms of jobs, housing imbalance, and traffic on the 101 that the voters approved bonds for Highway 101 widening. We've been talking about the jobs, housing imbalance for that long, and we're still talking about it on the South Coast. As a former planning commissioner for 8 years in the city, I can tell you that we think we have it solved only to, in the form of an ordinance or a project or a series of projects, and only to have it sent up to an elected body and have it come back to us. And so what we would like you to initiate today, but let me respond to a few other comments. What we hope to also analyze and study is what are the consequences of not taking action now? What does Orchid, Santa Maria, Lompoc look like without a project like this in 20 to 40 years? We think that it's an easy conclusion to draw today, at least, that it will end up looking like the South Coast in terms of disparity between incomes and housing affordability. In terms of VMT, there are employers out there and employees out there too that want to live in a community like this. You heard from a speaker that talked about projects like that in Denver. And we believe sincerely that that's going to be necessary for us to get through some of the VMT arguments and hurdles. But we believe the market is there for that. And there are employers that want to live in a sustainable community and have their employees live next door. Be remiss if I didn't also point out the obvious trends in electric vehicle ownership. They're rapidly increasing, and our owners from Denmark can attest to the fact that the majority of car owners there are in electric vehicles, majority. And we think we're on that trend too. In terms of ag land, we are certainly do have a few pockets of prime ag. We will have to vet that potential impact through the county's environmental thresholds, which is quite detailed in terms of quantifying ag, the potential loss of ag lands in terms of what's on the property now. Is there water that can provide for cultivation? The size and overall viability of what would potentially be lost. But we're not there yet. We haven't started, but we hope to get into that analysis in a significant way. Affordable housing is a good question. I'm not sure about the questions in terms of longevity of the affordability covenants, but those are pretty well ratified in the county. So if there are inclusionary units, that they will be in perpetuity affordable. But the comments about partnering with affordable housing providers are well taken, and we expect that we will have a lot of engagement with those types of organizations. My personal opinion is Habitat for Humanity has a place at the table as well. Their model doesn't get a lot of publicity, but that homeownership model with sweat equity is something that I hope that we can fit into the equation. Lastly, in terms of going to the board, if we go to the board, we go to the board. We think we have an incredible opportunity and a unique one, and one that makes a lot of sense, even new elected officials, where we are decommissioning oil productivity on this property and replacing it hopefully with a sustainable community that is net zero. Never been done before. Somebody mentioned that on the way up, and I said, well, I was down on the Mesa in Santa Barbara, but that's not a sustainable community. It's a nice place to live nonetheless. In terms of going to the board, we think this is the planning project and the planning process, and you're the planning commission. And we hope that you weigh in to what we've demonstrated to you here today in a way that gives us a lot of velocity or wind in our sails. Because if we end up at the board either way or on appeal, we want you to give us all of your comments, and we hope for your support. Again, if we end up at the board, it is what it is. We think the appeal threshold is the bar is pretty low, and so we may end up there, but we certainly hope that you can get behind this project and keep North County from looking like South County in the next 20 years.
You still have time left. And I have questions as well as.
Well, I can take
Ms. Bridley.
Land use and process questions, and if you have oil questions, I'll have to refer those off to Jackson.
That's okay. You okay? There's a lot of discussion today about jobs, housing balance, and we understand your material, but in the team's vision, what kind of tool is available for you to guarantee that there's a proximity of your homes to the employers that we've heard from today and whoever is on the landscape when you may finally build this project? In other words, I've seen lots of projects in the South Coast that get developed, and we hope that it's going to help, the local housing market, but maybe they're occupied by people that are there for 2 weeks out of a month because they're second homes, or they're not people that live and work downtown, even though that's what everybody hopes for. So my question is, as a developer, how is it that you have the ability to kind of control who buys or rents these homes in relation to the industry surrounding you?
Well, there's two ways to answer that question, and we'll have to attack from both directions. One is a VMT threshold that we hope to not be over. So we're going to have to build into our project some regulatory control over the employer types that are there, so we can draw a clean nexus between those, in a believable nexus between those employers that want to employ people there and those people that want to live there. We can't force them to live there, but we also can offer in today's market local preference opportunities for people to have first rights to lease or buy the homes for a period of time. And who knows, over time, maybe the laws will change about how local preference can work, but that's certainly the direction we would head.
Thank you. That's it.
So I'm going to throw you a softball, like a 16-inch softball, the really big ones, okay? And from discussions with me that I have a concern about how all the brilliant ideas in the South County and South Coast have resulted in market rate housing that is appealing to people with 200% of the median income, as opposed to the nurses and cops and firemen and police officers, et cetera, and teachers that are 80 to 120% of median income and qualify as moderate income housing. So I have a real concern that somehow between all of us, we get to supplying that moderate income housing. And I look at your project here, and from being on the City Planning Commission and presenting a lot of projects, typically when we see a building project, we see detailed site plans and renderings and so forth. But this is an initiation project, which maybe some of us have never seen in our lives. And so we're not seeing site plans and we're not seeing renderings and so forth. Could you tell us why, and maybe address what that says about the flexibility of the owners of the project towards looking to innovative housing ideas?
I don't want to fumble that, but could you repeat your question? It seemed like you were giving me some rhetorical softballs. I'm not sure.
I
what
thought that was the
question-
size of a basketball.
Are you asking me about
know,
the design process?
So why is your project different from what we typically see, where we see site plans and renderings and we hear from the developer, this is what I want to build or else? Okay, or is this more like a tabula rasa where the developer is saying, I want to do something out there and these are some of my ideas and I'm going to be open to hearing from the community and we'll be flexible?
Well, certainly the latter. This is a large project. In thinking past initiation of what this series of workshops would look like, they're all going to funnel to your boards of architectural review. While I feel sorry for the workload that would be upon them if we are initiated, that's going to be a significant and iterative design process to take each of the community areas and develop design guidelines that go part of our specific plan. So if your question is about how this is going to look and what that process looks like, I can tell you, we don't expect to even submit anything into the record for another 6 months past initiation because of the amount of iterative design and workshop public outreach that we expect will be needed.
And so are your clients open to a robust discussion of how the 4,000 units or whatever it turns into can be allocated among income groups? Because to tell you the truth, I'm not interested in voting to even start discussion of something that'll just be another suburb of Goleta industry. I want something more. And I don't think I'm alone in that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, as I mentioned, we are a blank slate, right? So what we saw up there are things that we internally thought of, modeled, make sure it was viable. But the reason all you see is the highlighted areas, because we don't know exactly what the community needs or wants in there. And part of after we initiate, we can start having these robust discussions to see exactly how we can allocate different areas to these different workforce needs. So clearly, we don't know yet what are going into that to that 30% of the pie. And we won't know until we have those type robust discussions and workshops and everybody come and robustly discuss what are the needs that we're going to fill through this process.
Okay.
I hope that answers your question.
Well enough. Okay. Unless there are other questions of the applicant, let's move to staff to take
I just have one quick question, if I may. When I was out there, I didn't see any row crops. Is there row crops out there? Not on site. Oh, I thought that's what I heard staff say. Like, I just want to make sure.
Correct. They're across the highway.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Where am I hearing that voice? Oh, there we are.
Commissioner Cooney in Santa Barbara. I have a question Mr. Higgins can answer. Good morning, Mr. Higgins.
Good morning. I'm here, Commissioner Cooney, if you want to fire away.
Okay. Yeah, my video appearance of you is delayed somewhat, so I didn't see you. The question I have, and I just wanted to have someone from the applicant team explain this to me. In the staff report and in the presentation by your clients, it appears that the extensive oil installations associated with the project are going to be eventually eliminated, and it seemed any building would be subject to that happening. But we all know stories from Southern California where old oil fields have not been sufficiently closed and have created the problem for subsequent owners of homes, built on or near those oil installations. So can you give me an idea, give the commission an idea of the timing of the elimination of all the oil facilities?
Hi, this is Jackson Washburn. I'll jump in here real quick. So great question. So the process of cleaning up oil fields to residential standards is well known by government oversight agencies. The site will be cleaned up to residential standards. It's come a long way in 30 years. A lot of the issues that you referred to was back in the day before the 80s when they realized it was a problem and they would just grade everything in and be done with it. So that's not the way it works these days. In fact, we won't be able to do anything until we get the site closed through government oversight. Even before we start grading, that will happen. It'll be closed. The wells will be closed via the CalGEM's oversight as well. So all of that will happen even before we start grading. So it's one of the first things that start happening in the development areas.
Any other questions, Commissioner Cooney?
No, that's what I wanted to hear from the applicant. Thank you.
Okay. Now let's hear from staff. If you have any responses or something to add.
Commissioners, thank you. Good morning. I don't think we have anything to add about the project per se. It is very conceptual. I want to commend Shannon Reese for all the hard work she did on this. We're happy to answer specific questions. We're happy to take notes depending on what your next action is. But I think we're good right now.
Okay. Now for something completely different, right? Okay, I want to do something a little different here on questions. And there's a reason for this. One, I want to get Commissioner Cooney on his way at a reasonable time. But also, I think it will benefit us if we have a very preliminary poll of what commissioners are thinking. Because often on a complicated project, we now ask questions of staff. And a lot of those questions, some of the questions where we truly don't know the answer, we just want some information about process. But sometimes they're expository questions. We're asking questions that are exposing lines of thinking and getting everybody thinking about it. You know, I'm the guiltiest of that. I mean, any good lawyer knows not to ask questions unless they know the answer, right, Mr. Martinez? Right. That's right. So, but let's dispense with that for just this moment. And let me take a poll, very preliminary poll. This isn't deliberations, of my fellow commissioners. I'd just like to know where you're leaning. So you say either decline or accept, okay? And that might influence what kind of questions you want to ask when we get to questions. So unless somebody has strong objection, let me ask Commissioner Cooney first. What would be your preliminary leaning? Decline or accept?
It's hard to answer your question with one answer word.
But you get opportunity in deliberations to state everything you think.
I'm inclined to initiate at this time.
Okay, let me go from my left to right. Commissioner Bridley?
And you gave me a heads up about this, but what the purpose of this is, if you hear most of us are declined to accept, that we would continue the discussion. If most of us are,
we're going to continue the discussion. I think that the commissioners, if they have a sense of where this is going or what others believe, will probably have fewer questions to ask of staff, and we'll get on the road center. That's what I'm thinking.
okay.
But you'll have full chance in deliberations to say whatever you want.
So if the vote here is for declines, then we would still continue to do deliberations.
We're going to
Okay.
do deliberations,
Okay,
absolutely.
well, I'm probably inclined to accept.
Okay. Commissioner Farini, where are you preliminarily?
I would be inclined to initiate.
Okay, and how about you, Mr. Martinez?
Well, since we're using lawyer talk, objection vague, ambiguous.
And unintelligible.
No, I would be more inclined to initiate, yes.
Okay. And who am I to argue with my fellow commissioners? So now, who has questions of staff that they'd like to ask? Commissioner Freeney, you look raring to go.
I don't have a lot of questions of staff. I've gone through the staff report and listened to the presentation from all. And I think probably what I have to say is more focused to would the appropriate time would be for deliberations.
Okay.
The thing is what I noticed from the chair was you had all of us say, are we where we are? You didn't really say where you are. Are you inclined to initiate or not?
Well, what I said was, who am I to argue with my
I
fellow
know.
commissioners?
So
And yes, I'm inclined in this preliminary moment to accept initiation, not decline.
Okay.
So who has questions of staff? Commissioner Cooney, do you have any questions of staff?
Mr. Chair, I have lots and lots of questions. And the primary reason that I think this project should be initiated is to start finding the answers to all my questions. I don't think staff has them today. And what staff does know and has given us as background is really enticing. So I'll follow staff provisions and the direction this project goes over its lifetime, but I have in no way the preparation, the information necessary to approve the project or any aspect of it, but they should be entitled to take it from here.
Okay. Then I think it's time for deliberations. And this is a 4th district item. So would you like to start, Commissioner Freeney?
I usually like to hear what everybody else has to say. I think it's very important. I think you know what my vote is right now, so I'd like to hear what the other commissioners have to say. I'll close.
Okay, who would like to go next?
I'll go next.
Commissioner Martinez.
Well, I can agree with what Commissioner Cooney just indicated right now about there's just so many questions with all the issues presented in this project. Agricultural issues, using our former agricultural land, zone land for housing, where addressing our housing needs, addressing where our housing is supposed to be, how you're going to do it. The number of questions that are come from a project, although the direction seems so well put as to being affordable housing versus workforce housing. I mean, it just everything's in this bowl here. It's a huge salad, mixed salad, I'll say. And I would just say that I'll end at that. I mean, it's a lot of questions that will be answered throughout this process, and to alleviate the comment today, this is not a session to approve the project. Period. End of story. This is just barely probably even cracking open the book to begin this story.
Very good.
Thank you.
And who would like to go next? Thank you, Commissioner Bradley.
So as I've stated before, and probably if no one in the room knows, I'm actually a practicing planner with almost pushing 40 years of experience. This is a very, very exciting kind
She started in grade school.
I know, I started in grade school. Thank you. This is a really complicated case, and I think that staff did an outstanding job of explaining that this is just the touch start of it, and it's a long process. And I want to thank the applicants ahead of time for recognizing that this is going to be a grind. Yes, I am not as afraid of general plan amendments. I've had cases with clients that have that done more routinely, but in general, public agencies don't like them because once you adopt your general plan and your zoning designation, it is sacrosanct. The thing is, in the state of California, very few agencies are actually updating their general plans and doing much to them now because we don't have the funding or the staff, as we've heard from the employee dilemmas. So I don't have an issue about initiating this at all. I think they definitely deserve the chance to go forward and answer all these questions that we all have in our mind, that some of the members of the public have also questioned, and it's going to be very vibrant. I just think now it is significantly different than in 2007 when the case did not get initiated, because now we have the state of California demanding that we put housing practically in our trash bins. I mean, if there's a space that isn't built, we should put housing on it. I mean, that is the direction that we've heard over the last couple of years, and it's going to get even harder. So much so that some of what we do in terms of discretionary approvals for things like, oh, I don't know, SB 9 and 10 cases, where now you can come in and actually subdivide a single family lot. You know, that's not, we don't even have discretion over that anymore. So the situation is so significantly different in 2007. And I think that as much as I've heard for decades, like what Mr. Cronk explained with his experience with Westmont and Cottage Hospital, it's just gotten worse and worse. So I am excited to vote, unfortunately against staff's recommendation, but I understand why staff made that recommendation. I really want to see this initiated. And I think the Planning Commission is the correct agency to do so, or the correct board to do it. If for some reason it's appealed, I will, have to explain to the supervisor that appointed me why I feel strongly that this should get a get-go. It doesn't mean that it's going to be approved. Absolutely not. They may come into the VMT noose and say, you know what, we just can't fix it. Or there may be other things that come up there. Tiger Salamander may say, this doesn't pencil out for us, but now is not the time to let them not begin. So that's my opinion. I would vote to not support staff's recommendation, and maybe it would have to go back for a change in, I don't know, not a resolution, just we could take that action and be done with it today. Okay,
Okay.
there you go.
Commissioner Cooney, what do you have to say in deliberations?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Commissioner Farini, for the wisdom to listen to everybody else. But I, like you, rely heavily on the views of the rest of the commission, and we have a lot of experience in terms of planning professionally, as does Commissioner Bridley. For me, it's just a long time on the Planning Commission, and I was really struck by the concern expressed by other commissioners that it's too easy, too simple, and I don't think productive for us to simply turn to the board and say, you do the initiation process. The statutes allow and call for us doing that, and I feel responsible to make the decision here whether this project gets initiated or not. So I said at the outset I was inclined to initiate. The only trouble I've had in terms of today is hearing from someone I deeply respect in Director Plowman, and I think her comments were that it's just better for the overall planning process that it go to the board upfront before all of the time, expense, and information is produced that would answer our questions. I've thought about that, and will disagree with her just to the extent that I think those questions and the answering and the information that will come from the environmental impact report, plus all the other things that have been mentioned, will come back to us in a better form if we've been the initiators rather than the board of directors, a board of supervisors.
Thank you. Did you want to add anything else, Mr. Freeney?
Yeah, I don't know if this is rhetorical or what, but I've got a few points I wanted to make. I should probably just be quiet and move on to the vote, but
go for it.
What Commissioner Bridley was talking about is this splitting of lots, and it's actually unplanned development within planned developments. So we're losing control and we're ignoring the loads on the infrastructure when we're adding more houses to existing lots. Neighborhoods weren't built and designed for that. And that now is part of the new hand we've been dealt by the state, that just do it. And so what that points to me is that we are lacking in long-term inventory, and we're rushing in a short-term solution. But as we add more homes through the short-term solution, that's going to create more traffic, all of these unintended consequences on these existing communities. So when we take an applicant who wants to really bite the bullet here and harness up to the workload of establishing an all new community to give us a better housing inventory, I think that should be supported. I thought it was interesting what Mr. Washburn spoke about, that it's that Orchid Hill has gone full circle. When they started developing oil up there, it was that the worker housing was up there. And then the oil field became so busy that they said, hey, let's go down to Orchid and let everybody get away from the work site and start building a place for workers to live so they could relax and get away from all their work. My other big concern in Santa Maria, and I've heard it about the Goleta area as well, is the pressure of new housing on prime ag ground. Okay. And so the easiest place to build houses is on the flatlands, which in Santa Maria Valley is the middle of the valley. That also is the prime ag land. That's where the water is. The soils are level, the soils are richer, and everything's more convenient to the agricultural infrastructure in place to handle moving those products to market. Here we have what I would say is a slice of tranquility if you didn't have the oil field there, that now is going to be converted to houses. Is that good or bad? Well, it's where there is no water. Okay. It's where there's not a lot of flat land, and they're not building a sprawl type cookie cutter one big neighborhood. They've got little pockets or villages, as they call them. I think that's a very unique look at things, and it shows me that they're not just looking at making a quick buck, that they have multiple solutions in mind. Now, after they go through all the process of planning and development and EIRs, are they still able to do that? That remains to be seen. So I appreciate that. I think overall it should be initiated so that we can see how it ends up and then ultimately vote on the quality of the project.
Thank you. I'm going to add a few comments, and I'm doing this in realization that when we state our viewpoints in these deliberations, we are, of course, speaking to each other. We're also speaking to staff. We're speaking to the public. We're speaking to the applicant. We're speaking to the media. We're speaking to the future. So my thoughts are, I want to go through some of the considerations that were raised by staff, validly important considerations, and then talk somewhat about what the Planning Commission should be doing. But the first thing I want to address is my initial impression when I saw the staff report was, oh my goodness, I'd kind of like to better understand whether this has been exposed to the public at all and exposed to the media. And are people thinking about this? And is the board thinking about this? What does the board think? Because it's an important decision. I don't want to blow it. And I was helped very much by the comment letters we received, because they were well drafted. They were sophisticated. They addressed important issues. They showed they had a command of these important issues. And what particularly impressed me, and I think Commissioner Bradley as well, was the diversity of where they came from. I think there is a, and I'm going to exaggerate, but I think there's a belief in parts of the South County that jobs in the North County are picking strawberries and working out in the oil fields. Okay. And so why do we need more housing? But in fact, I think from what we saw in the letters and from the people that attended today and what they had to say, there's a much larger diversity of jobs in the Santa Maria Valley that are important and maybe not as well recognized as they should be. And what we're going to see coming down the pike is a lot more of those jobs. So that's really high quality input, and I appreciated having that. And I'm always going to agree. I wish there was more exposure to the public to come and speak, but I saw letters from Citizens Planning Association, from SB and from the Orchid Open Space Organization that were very sophisticated in raising issues and making cautionary points, and I appreciated that. So I think I got the input that I thought I would miss. And, you know, trying to discern what our board wants, especially given the constraints we have with the Brown Act, it's kind of like reading a John Le Carre novel. You know, you're looking for inferences and what files are missing and so forth, kind of like Smiley's People, a Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. But I'm able to discern as best I can and what the board position is. In a sense, I would be violating the Brown Act if I told you what each board member thought. But I'm basically discerning there's not a grave immediate objection to the Planning Commission initiating this and dealing with it in the Planning Commission level. I think right now for our board and for our planning staff, they are overwhelmed with some really important issues that are relevant to all this, the housing element, and they have immediate things they have to be working on. And so this probably wouldn't be the most welcome thing to come to the board right now. And the board might have to give a more hurried attention to it that might be regretted later. So I'm not getting the sense that, you know, we ought to put this down. Now, why should we take it up? That's what I want to get to next. That's where I'm going to address some of the considerations I heard about. One was the job housing balance. Okay, I'll say right off the bat, if the developers here wanted to build still another suburb where workers from Goleta would go live and commute back and forth to, I'd say stop it right now. I'm not interested in that. But I think we can have a much more sophisticated discussion of this balance of what generates jobs, what generates housing, and what the needs are, especially in the North County. And that's a discussion as big as this project is. It goes beyond this project. It goes to the whole growth of the Santa Maria Valley. Probably, I'm nearing 70. It's probably the most important thing I'll ever talk about again, other than the imminent birth of my granddaughter. But it's a big issue, and I think we ought to take the time to deal with it. And I think we can deal with it in a positive manner. I'm hoping we can. So this isn't just another suburb of Goleta. Another issue we saw was conversion of agriculture and the effect on the sort of visual gateway to the Santa Maria Valley. Now, I come to Orchid several times a month, and I really enjoy the view of Solomon Hills. I'm probably one of the few persons here that knows the exit number of Las Flores exit, because that's where you get off if you're an equestrian driving a horse trailer to go park in the back area of Las Flores Ranch and wander around the trails from there. So I do that all the time, and I climb up on that ridge at Las Flores Ranch and I look across to Solomon, pay a lot of attention to it. it's a beautiful place and it's a wonderful aesthetic gateway. If I thought that the developers wanted to build a bunch of 1950s style tract houses all over the hillsides, I'd say, stop now. That's just sprawl. That is the classic leapfrogging. But I think that our understanding of how to do things has progressed, and it's worth talking about. You know, if we have pockets of housing hidden in this canyon here and there and on some of the flat land and so forth, maybe that preserves that beautiful aesthetic look that's a gateway to Orchid instead of ruining it. Maybe it preserves it. So it's something to think about, something that we can deal with or talk about. Conversion of ag land, I think, is, as folks have all acknowledged, this is oil land that's zoned for ag. And we have parcels throughout the county that are zoned ag, but they're really something else. The ag here, it's not going to be row crop. It's not the right soils. It's been impacted by the oil development that's there already. It's a cattle ranch right now. You know, it may seem like large acreage compared to your backyard. It's not big as a cattle ranch. I mean, I have sheep. I can name every one of my sheep. I bet if I had that as a cattle ranch, I could name every cow on it, because that's not very many cows. Okay, so are we preserving it as ag land so we can have 20 or 30 cows rambling around? We have higher needs we need to address. So I'm not so concerned about the ag conversion. I think it's a wonderful issue for us all to be thinking about, though. How do we use these ag parcels that may be oriented towards something else, that we can reuse them in better ways without losing agriculture? Oil. Oil is a fascinating subject of its own. I mean, we've had a large oil economy. We probably still need to have some. We have to do some transitioning. And this is an interesting property where we can say, can we take something that's oil and been active oil, and it's had sumps and other things for 100+ years, and can we convert it into something that's aesthetically pleasing and useful for housing or some other purpose? So that should be something that's intellectually stimulating to all of us as well. A final thing I want to address is recreation. I'm very much involved with the county and consultants in addressing ag tourism and recreation. This parcel to me is a recreation parcel. We don't really have a zoning for that and are looking at it that way, but it's a recreation parcel. It is a tabula rasa, where we're not saying, oh, let's put a little trail by the edge of this parking lot to meet this condition of approval. It's something where we're looking at it, and can we tie it into something important? This project will exit onto 101, but it'll also exit onto 135. And so that's important for what workers would live there, but it's also important for recreation. There's a way to tie in some pretty important projects that are coming. One thing we're doing is that I've been working on, in particular, Recreation Master Plan is a Fox and Canyon Trail project that goes all the way up to the San Luis Obispo County border, but it also has offshoots over to Orchid into Santa Maria. You know, I lead a hiking group out of Orchid. We go every second and fourth Tuesday, and on the few days before Christmas, we went over to Presqu'île Winery. It was 40 of us and Supervisor Nelson. And we met with the owner of Presqu'île, who's interested in doing some ag tourism camping and so forth. And as part of that, would dedicate a public trail that would go from Clark. And there's an existing bikeway to Clark. And you can take that out in either direction from Presqu'île. And this trail that we walked, okay, all 40 of us, goes down to the border of Lost Forest Ranch. Is within spitting distance of the trails at Lost Forest Ranch. So imagine that. We might have a trail that could go from Orchid all the way out to Fox and Canyon and all those things. And then but there'd be an offshoot that would go down through Presqu'île into Lost Forest Ranch, go under the freeway, go over this project, and bingo, come back to Orchid. be very exciting. And so we need to look at the bigger picture on that and have a discussion of how we want that, or do we want it, and how it would all look. So if we don't initiate it, we'll never have these discussions, and these are discussions that are really bigger than this project. But here's a chance for us to have those discussions as a whole community. So for me, I think it is appropriate that the Planning Commission pick this up. I can't promise that any of my ideas will be worth a hoot, but I think one thing that I can do, and all the other commissioners, is make sure we really chew on this and discuss these issues and come to some good community solutions. So I look forward to hearing Mr. Freeney's motion. What's your motion?
I would make the motion that we follow staff's second recommendation on page 2 of the staff report, which says to accept the general plan amendment and rezone application for processing.
And Mr. Wilson, does that work as a motion?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, that works.
I'm amazed to hear that. Normally when we come up with a change in recommendations, it's like, how do we scramble from here? But that's great. Well done.
Well, I'll second that motion.
And it's seconded. So we have a motion on the floor. Do we have further deliberations? And did you have anything else to say, Commissioner Cooney?
No, Mr. Chair, I think our deliberations have taken a healthy chunk of time, and we should move to the vote.
Okay. Mr. Villalobos, let's do this as a roll call vote because we have Mr. Cooney remotely, and I just think it's a good idea anyway in this case.
Commissioner Cooney,
Aye.
Commissioner Bradley,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeney,
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez,
Aye.
Chair Park,
Aye.
motion passes 5-0.
Carried. And do we have anything else before the commission today?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, that concludes our business for today.
Very good. Well, Commissioner Cooney, get on the road.
I'm on the way. Thank you.
Invite me next time.